Welcome to Where Are They Now? We reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca High Schools and invite selected alumni to share memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 72,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools. Hello and welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now? I'm Mark Sonsini, a 1996 graduate of Cherokee High School. And today we'll be talking with another 1996 Cherokee graduate. He's an emergency medicine doctor at Cooper University Hospital in Camden, New Jersey. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Sundip Patel to the show. Sundip?
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us today. So tell us first, before we get to Cherokee, tell us how you got there. You grew up in Marlton?
Yeah, no, born and raised in Marlton. Went to Van Zant Elementary School, Marlton Middle, and then Cherokee, so a bit of a lifer.
Okay. And any siblings that went to Cherokee as well?
Yeah, my older brother, Jignesh, was 7 years ahead of me, so he graduated in '89.
Okay.
Which was kind of funny because when you're growing up and your brother's that much older, you really don't connect.
Right.
So I never got like any of the details on what I should be doing and how to survive high school from him. But then as the years have gone, it's amazing how we've gotten closer.
Yeah, exactly like you said, you kind of get closer as the years don't seem like they matter as much as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
So, any big part of high school, of course, is friends. Any friends you still keep in touch with that you talk to from high school?
Yeah, my college roommate was Andy Calabria at Villanova, so we spent a few years together and we've stayed in touch. A lot of our activities surround Villanova basketball, going out to games. So he's been a close friend that I've stayed with, and then a couple guys that I ran cross country with at Cherokee, Tim Haggerty, Matt Jacobson.
Okay.
We try to get together every couple of months, actually with our old coach, Steve Shackley.
Terrific.
So that's been great. And then, as we were talking about before, I'm in a fantasy football league with some of the guys we went to high school with. So we stay in touch that way as well.
Great. Yeah, it's always good to keep in touch with those guys, but as you know, it gets harder as you get older, you make more and more friends. It's hard to keep time for everybody, but that's good.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your time at Cherokee, our time at Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the activities you were involved in, you were, as you mentioned, cross country and track and the Latin Club. Tell me about those.
Yeah, did 4 years of cross country, winter track, spring track, and it was a lot of fun. You just kind of get to know a core group of people, and then you suffer through the pain of practices and meets and races, and you kind of keep going forward with them, and you really get to know them. And obviously, I was lucky enough I got to build some lasting relationships with some of those people. Latin Club obviously was interesting. We weren't a big club. There was only like a couple of us,
okay.
But Andy Calabria, Josh Wallet, and I were kind of like the class officers of that. And it was great, having the Christmas bazaar, and there's really no Latin foods that I know, so we would sell Italian hoagies. But a lot of good memories from that.
Now, how did the Italian Club feel about that?
Probably not happy.
They were,
probably
not. Okay. So some of the teachers that had an impact on you during your time at Cherokee, one of them was Patricia Underwood.
Yeah, Mrs. Underwood, she was my English, AP English teacher and Latin teacher, so I definitely I had her for all 4 years for Latin. And she was amazing. She, I think, saw potential in me that I didn't see. I can be honest with you, I hated writing, still do. And like math and science were kind of my favorite subjects.
Okay.
So I kind of got into her class, and I think she really pushed me and kind of showed me how I can be a better writer, and it's definitely helped out.
Okay. And Mr. Kornhauser, Neil Kornhauser for math?
For
There's
math,
another one.
I love Dr. Kornhauser because nothing ever fazed him. He was just always this insanely approachable guy, always laughing, would always make jokes, but taught, and just a great role model. As I've kind of looked towards being a teacher, I always kind of look at some of the people that really influenced me, and he's definitely one of them.
And then someone else who had a big impact, I mentioned on your career choice, Patty Sadowski for science.
Yeah, Ms. Sadowski was amazing. I had her for AP Bio, and when you're doing it, you don't realize like what you're being taught and how much you're learning. And I think the most amazing part was when I got into college, and then I'm taking these courses, and I'm like, wow, we kind of covered this in AP Bio. And I thought it was amazing that she was really holding us to a higher standard, and actually made life a lot easier for many of us that took that class, and definitely set me up for my career.
That's great. So after Cherokee, you graduate, and you're off to Villanova, and you go in with a major in chemical engineering.
Yes.
Tell me the story behind that.
Yeah, so a little funny in that, my dad's an engineer, my brother's an engineer, both of them, their career paths take them out of engineering. So when I was coming up, I was like, dude, I want to do medicine. I knew that was something I wanted to do.
Okay.
But my parents sat me down, and they were a little afraid of me going bio major route into med school, and they thought, what if you don't get into med school? What are you going to do with a bio major? So they kind of struck a deal with me saying, look, we'll chip in for tuition if you decide to do an engineering field. And they were like, choose wherever you want. So I'm looking, I'm like, chemical engineering, well, you hit most of the sciences with that, why not do that? And that's literally how I stumbled into it. And actually, to be honest with you, I was really torn at the end of it. I really kind of considered pursuing chemical engineering as a career, ultimately decided on medicine.
Okay. And then, so after that, you go to Robert Wood Johnson for med school.
Yep. Really interesting in that now I'm involved at teaching out of med school, and then how it's changed compared to when I went to med school. So Robert Wood, I spent the first 2 years up in New Brunswick, and the way med schools were traditionally divided is the first 2 years you kind of get slammed with just book knowledge.
Okay.
You have to memorize countless amount of facts, and you're almost like, it almost feels like you're getting hazed. Like you got to do all this stuff, and then you can finally touch a patient and see a patient. And the last 2 years were actually spent down here in Camden at Cooper, where you do your clinical rotations. And I'll tell you, the first 2 years were like hard. I'm like, God, like this is just pointless. I'm spending hours and hours and hours stuck studying all this facts. And then finally you see like the dividends when you get into your third year and you're taking care of a patient. You're like, oh, all that stuff that I learned actually does get put into practice. Maybe not all of it, but a good amount.
So then you finish your residency there, and then you head over to, or I'm sorry, you finish your med degree there, and then for your residency, you head over to Cooper Hospital in the emergency.
Correct. Yeah. So, when you finish med school, then it's kind of almost back to like college again, where you got to pick a career path. And so, for me, I picked emergency medicine because it just fit kind of my personality and the stuff that I like to see. I like to see a lot of variety, different age groups, the craziness. I don't like a 9-to-5 schedule, and emergency medicine is perfect for that because you work shifts. And so you finish med school, and then for emergency medicine, it's a 3-year residency, and I did it at Cooper, and it was a no-brainer. I mean, you kind of go where you know you're going to get trained well and see a lot of crazy things, and Cooper and Camden's definitely that place. The amount of pathology we see, the sickness and illness that comes through the doors is amazing. So as a training ground, we're like, it's up against any other place in the country. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And it was a tough 3 years, I'm not gonna lie. Like the learning curve is insanely high. And my residency class was 7 of us. And we talked about staying close with people from high school, but I'm still very close with the people I went to residency with, because it's almost like, you went through so many trials and tribulations. And we still kind of bounce ideas off each other when, taking care of someone, you're like, I don't know exactly what's going on. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
And then, they'll kind of chime in, and it really helps.
Well, I'm sure it's a trying time when you're going through all that. And was there at a point where you thought, did I pick the right path? Is this really what I want to do?
The thought has to cross your mind, right? It's so stressful. You're working so many hours. Some weeks you're getting up to 70 hours, 80 hours, if not more. You're sleep deprived. You're not seeing your family. And then, you're seeing your more successful peers from high school, and you're like, man, that guy just bought a house. And I'm like in a lot of debt, and that's not fun. And yeah, you kind of start questioning, like, oh my God, is it worth it? But yeah, it's definitely worth it.
All right, so let's talk about the being in the emergency room part of this. Now, obviously you go through a ton of training, as you talked about, but does it really prepare you, and especially like you talked about, being the setting of being in basically an inner city as compared to a suburb emergency room, I'm sure is a lot different. Are you really prepared for what you're going to see in there, or is that just something that you kind of have to learn as it goes?
It's a great question, and I think yes and no is the best answer I can give you.
Technically, I'm sure you're prepared, but
Yeah, I mean, and I was fortunate in that I trained at the place that I wound up staying on at. So I'm still working at Cooper, and I think that transition makes it so much easier because you know the nurses,
Right.
you know the patient population, you know how to get in contact with people. I made relationships with people in other fields that if I need to lean on them, I can pick up the phone and call them. And I think that, for me, absolutely made the transition much easier. But the hardest part about becoming, the attending, becoming the doc, where you're no longer training, is now it's you're making the calls. And in residency, it's hard. You're trying to figure out what's going on, but the attending makes the call, and now it's you. And there's no longer oh, wait a minute, what should I do? It's you got to make the call. And
I imagine a lot of times they're split-second calls.
Yeah,
you don't have a lot of time to think about, or.
And sometimes no information. Patients coming in, they're not talking to you, and based on how they look, what their temperature, heart rate, blood pressure are, you got to make some quick decisions. And in the beginning, you definitely sweat a lot, and you worry a lot, and you got to change your pants a lot. But as time goes on and you get more experience, it definitely gets a lot easier.
So let's talk about some of it. Consider our audience. We'll keep it PG rated.
Okay.
Tell us some of the craziest or unusual things that you've seen.
You got a couple of hours?
Yeah.
There's countless stories, and I'll tell you one that I still kind of remember, and I don't know why, but it just shows you kind of some of the craziness that can happen. And I remember it was a young lady. She was driving in her car with her boyfriend. They're going down Route 55, and they get into a verbal argument. She gets so angry, she basically opens the door and jumps out of the car as it's moving 55, 60 miles per hour. So most of us would have been you know what, I don't want to be in the car with you. Let me stop the car. I'm going to get out, right? But no, she decides to open the door and gets out and tumbles and injures herself. And so she comes into us, and she's screaming, hollering. She's in a lot of pain. There's scrapes, abrasions all over her, and I'm thinking oh my God, there's so many things that could be wrong here. Rib fractures, maybe she has a splenic laceration. And so we do the workup and find out the only thing she has is a clavicle fracture and a little bruise to the lung. And I'm like, man, you were lucky. And she's still just fixated and angry at her boyfriend and basically pinning this all on him. And we said, we want to watch you overnight because you got the lung bruise. And so, okay. And it's a busy night. And then all of a sudden at 2 in the morning, I get a phone call from the nurse taking care of her saying she wants to leave. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I go upstairs and I walk in the room and I see the boyfriend there. And they've made up and he's driving her home. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. This is crazy. And yeah, so she's like, oh, I'm fine, we've made up, I wanna go home. I'm like, oh, okay.
All right. That is a good one. And I'm sure you've seen everything from, something like that to kids and adults. Probably, you've probably had people not make it, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. I mean, the hardest part about this job is we obviously want to do our best, and sometimes you just can't save someone. And then to break that news to family, it's always unexpected, obviously. And I've never seen this family. I have no relationship with them, and to go into that room and tell them that a loved one's passed is definitely hard. The hardest thing we do.
Yeah.
It never gets easy. Certain things in life, if you keep doing it, get easier. That's definitely not one of them.
Is that something that you get trained on in when you're going through med school? How to,
Yeah, we definitely get some training, but training's one thing, and then the real life situation's another. But we are prepared. We actually, it sounds crazy, but we do simulations on this, and we practice it. And we'll go over different scenarios of how to do this. And what if the family asks for this? What do you do? But it's still another matter of walking that room and knowing you're going to deliver some really bad news. It's still hard.
Yeah, and they're standing there in front of you and probably breaking down.
Yeah, and their questions are always, why didn't you do more? And so one interesting thing that I know I've changed in my own practice is, and it sounds crazy, and it sounds like you wouldn't want to do this, but we'll actually bring the family into the room while we're trying to save someone.
Okay.
So that they can kind of see and understand what we're doing. And I can tell you there's been some times where the family also reaches out and says stop, grandma, grandpa wouldn't want all that you're doing. Or we do what we do, there's not a successful outcome, and then the family turns and actually thanks us because they're like, you definitely threw the kitchen sink, you did everything you could, and are really appreciative of that.
So how, like, does it take you a while to get over something like that, or is it just,
It's
you know,
hard.
your next shift you're in there and you're moving, so you kind of have to forget about it?
I mean, you don't forget, but you kind of have to move on, you know, and it's a huge cliche, but it's like being a cornerback. You get burned for a long touchdown, you got to think
Yeah.
about the next play. And I don't mean to sound callous with that, but it's just, you know, you have so many, you're taking care of the other patients and you can't ignore them.
Right. They need your full attention.
And they need your full attention, you're right. So you kind of have to move on, but you do grieve. And, you know, I think there's been a huge movement towards physician wellness. And, you know, wherever it may be, whether it's travel, exercise, to kind of help you decompress. And then that's something I've definitely have gotten a lot better at.
Good, good. So during your time there, the last 11 years, you've been assistant professor as well to med students and residents. So tell us about how that experience has been.
Yeah, I think this is one part of my job that I absolutely love, which is teaching med students and residents. And, you know, I think I got really lucky being at the right place at the right time. So back in the day, Robert Wood Johnson students, the 3rd and 4th year students, came down to Cooper Hospital to do their clerkships.
Okay.
Well, 8, 9 years ago, basically Camden got its own medical school, Cooper Med School, Rowan University. And I think it was amazing. I got to get in on the ground floor of helping develop some of the curriculum for this med school. And it's been really fascinating. It's still changing even to this day. And you know, I'm lucky enough that I serve as the clerkship director for the emergency medicine clerkship.
Okay.
So we have all the 4th year med students at Cooper Med School rotate through our ER. And I am in charge of kind of training them up, teaching, evaluating them, grading them. Not the most fun part, that. But it's been amazing having 4 years of students now. You can really see how someone progresses from their 1st year to their 4th year. And some of them actually have wound up in our residency. So now I've seen like 7 years of them progressing. And
Very cool.
it's so much fun. It really is. And it really makes me appreciate, you know, the teachers I've had at Cherokee, at Villanova, that have kind of shaped me. And I do try to take the best of all of them, and hopefully I'm trying to incorporate that into what I do.
Good, good. And you said there was Dr. Chansky that you've worked with there has really been a big influence on you as well.
Absolutely, yeah. He's, you know, to be bluntly honest, all the faculty there, we really don't leave that place. We drink the Kool-Aid and we stay on. They've all
It's like a
shaped
family,
me.
I imagine, right? You're there so
Absolutely.
often, so many hours together.
Absolutely, definitely. I mean, Mark, you hit on the nail. It's family, and you know, they've all shaped me. But you know, Dr. Chansky, he's the chairman of the department. He's basically my boss, and you never feel like he's your boss. Like, he's been a mentor, to be honest with you. He's been a teacher. He shaped me as a student, shaped me as a resident, and then even now, he continues to help me out. Anytime I've kind of gone to him with something, he never says why, or the answer's not no. It's always like, how can we make that happen? And it's just so refreshing to have someone that is more invested in your development than in like cost of something,
Right.
or other obstacles. And you know, you have to be careful when you go to him with something, because he's really going to move mountains for you.
Okay.
And he's just a great guy to work for. You know, I've been there now almost 12 years. Actually, if you count residency, we're now talking, you know, 15 years.
Yeah.
And so I've known him for that long, and you know, I'm glad to say, like, I can consider him a friend. Insanely approachable, and it's just a pleasure working with him.
It makes your job easier when you have somebody like that.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, like, work is fun when you have a boss that supports
Right.
you, and he's letting you do the things that you want to do.
Good. And over your time as an assistant professor, you've received some teaching awards as well.
Been lucky. You know, again, I'm kind of touched that the residents and students have thought that way, and it really helps balance the job. You know, like you mentioned, being in the ER can get insanely stressful, and I think the balance to my life and my job is being able to teach and teaching the students and residents, and you know, and I still feel like there's a lot of things I can learn in terms of how doing that, and I'm still going to courses and going to conferences and picking stuff up like that. But you know, again, I think I've been fortunate that they've kind of have said, hey, you know what, I think you're doing a good job.
That's good. So at what point did you sort of realize that you wanted to, this teaching aspect of this was something that you wanted to do as well?
Yeah, you know, I never really thought about it. It never crossed my mind in high school. Even in college, I didn't really ever consider it. I thought I was going to be like a doctor, and that was it, take care of patients,
Right.
work, go home, and be happy. And then when I kind of got into med school, I noticed like some of the upper level students teaching, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then I got involved, and I really enjoyed it. And then in residency, I got a lot of opportunities to do it, and I really said, wow, this is kind of my niche. This is something I'm really interested in doing. And again, talk about right place at the right time. As I was graduating, the spot for clerkship director for emergency medicine opened up.
Okay.
And I approached Dr. Chansky and I said, look, I think this would be a great position for me and I'd really love to do it. And he luckily had faith in a guy that just graduated and put me in that position. And so far, you know, again, I've been in that position for 11, 12 years and it's been great.
Great, you've been successful at it. That's awesome. So let's talk about your family a little bit. Your wife, you're married. Tell me how you guys met.
Yeah, you know, it was really unexpected. So right after college, I hadn't seen my grandparents who live in India for about 10 years. And so I was like, it's time, I got to go back there. And so I did. And you know, the flight to get there is horrible. It takes about 20 hours.
Wow.
You're insanely jet lagged. Where my grandparents live, there's no central AC, and it's sweltering. So you know, when I got there, I couldn't sleep. It was insanely hot, and so I'm like, I'm just going to take a walk around. And I literally, that's kind of how I met her, and we just hit it off. And the crazy part of the story is that I was there for about a month, and at the end of the month, kind of proposed to her.
Wow.
And, yeah, you know, as I flew back, I called my brother, and I'm like, hey, just want to let you know I got engaged. And he, you know,
What'd you do on your trip?
Yeah, basically. And you know, he was kind of like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And no, it's, you know, it's worked out. We got married in 2001, so
Wow.
somehow hasn't come to her common senses and left me, which is good. But no, it's been amazing. She's definitely the bedrock of our family. You know, our family would easily fall apart if she wasn't there. And you know, thank God. But yeah, no, there's decisions in your life you never regret, and that's one of them. I'm
Yeah.
glad I didn't listen to my brother, didn't listen to any second voices, and kind of just said, yeah, this is the one.
When you know, you know.
Exactly.
How were her parents with it?
Not so happy initially. You know, they were kind of like, this has been a month.
Right.
B, they're like, so you live in America, and you know, our daughter's going to go to America,
Yeah.
and they weren't too thrilled about that, but they did come around
Good, good.
years later.
They're still coming around. So you have two girls.
I do have two girls, Mega, who is in 6th grade at DeMacy, and Sonal, who's in 4th grade also at DeMacy.
Okay, awesome. And what kind of stuff do you guys like to do as a family? When you have free time?
Oh my God, it seems like it changes by the day. So with the girls, the big thing we've gotten into is the Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
So we've been playing a lot of Super Mario Party lately, and they are kicking my butt. So I need to get
You
my
gotta practice up.
I got to get my gamer skills back.
Okay.
I'm pretty disappointed in this. You know, movies are a big thing in our family.
Yeah.
So going out to the movies is huge. Outdoor activities, as much as possible. We have the basketball net outside, so we're always shooting hoops. You know, travel has become a huge thing over the last couple of years. You know, going through med school residency, you're kind of limited.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make up for lost time, and
Okay.
you know, been on a little bit of a national parks kick, going out to Yosemite, the Grand Canyon, and a lot of complaining from them, but I think they're
Yeah.
starting to appreciate it.
Well, they're at that age that for the next 10 years they're going to be complaining about something. So it doesn't
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that part, but it's amazing seeing them grow and seeing their different personalities,
Yeah.
and you know how they're definitely two different personalities, and it's so much fun to watch them grow and hang out with them.
And those trips to the national parks, I'm sure those are awe-inspiring.
Absolutely.
Some of the things that you see.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't go to the Grand Canyon and not be inspired, and you can watch pictures, watch it on TV. It does it no justice. You have to be there and see it, and it really humbles you. Helps you connect to nature, which is always a
Yeah.
good thing. And Yosemite was the same way. It was just really cool to go see all that natural splendor.
And did you bring the video games with you when you went?
You know, with the
Is that all left
Switch,
at
the
home?
cool thing is you can kind
Right.
of pull it with you. I actually kind of forced them to leave it behind.
Okay, good.
So kind of, they've actually did get a actually cool experience without having the Switch out.
Excellent, excellent. So also in your free time, you're into Villanova basketball? And the Eagles?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, God, you know, there's years there where I was kind of thinking I may never see an Eagles championship,
Yeah.
and got to see it, and oh my God, it was amazing.
Did you go to the parade?
You know, I didn't, but I got lucky enough to go to both playoff games at home.
Oh, wow.
And you know, that MC championship game, that's like insane.
Yeah.
Having been there, and the game ends and everyone's just sitting in the parking lot and still celebrating for an hour and a
Right.
half afterwards was amazing. And I thought that I actually had to work that day, so I couldn't go to the parade. But I was like, you know what? I got to go to those two games, which made up for it. With regards to Villanova, I never would have imagined this in my wildest dreams, to see 2 championships in
Yeah.
3 years. And actually, I was really fortunate enough to go down to San Antonio and actually go to the Final
Oh.
Four.
Wow.
And the coolest memories I have is they win, and we go down to the Riverwalk where they hold a celebration, and the team comes in on a barge, and it's like midnight, and there's nothing but Villanova fans like lining
Yeah.
the Riverwalk, and it was just really the coolest experience I've ever been a part of.
That's awesome.
And literally like slept for 2 hours and then had to like get in a car and fly out, but I would not give that one up for the world. It was just great.
That's cool. So any other or any future plans or goals, things that you have your heart set on coming up?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think a lot of it is going to deal with getting more involved in the medical school, and just kind of, I'm really fascinated with how curriculum is created and how you develop courses and how are you making sure that your students are getting the information they need, but in the ways that they appreciate. So, you know, the way you and I learned is not the way that this generation learns.
Changed
And,
drastically.
you know, trying to adapt to that. So, you know, things I've done like with the clerkship is taking a lot of the lectures and making them interactive, posting them online so that students can review it on their own time. I'll tell you, it's been hard for me because I'm like, you know, crack a book open, read, but
Right.
that's definitely not the way
Yeah.
this generation learns. So to get more involved with that, get more involved in the med school. You know, again, my boss is sticking around for at least 5 more years, and I don't know if I can find a better one, so I don't foresee myself leaving Cooper anytime soon.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm starting to get involved with kind of some national committees in emergency medicine, so probably continue some of that work.
Terrific. Sounds awesome. Well, I congratulate you on all your success so far in your career after
Thank you, man.
Cherokee.
Appreciate that.
And it's been a pleasure talking to you today, so thanks for
Yeah.
being with us.
Great seeing you again, Mark.
You too. And that'll do it for this episode of Where Are They Now? For more Lenape District alumni interviews, check us out on youtube.com/Lenape District TV. We'll see you next time.